Would you believe a red card could just disappear? Not overturned by VAR, not rescinded on appeal, just gone, days later, after a phone call nobody in that stadium even knew was happening. Well, that's exactly what happened at the 2026 World Cup. And by the time the dust settled, it wasn't just a football story anymore. Let's set the scene. Folarin Balogun had been the USA's leading scorer at this World Cup. 3 goals for the co-hosts, the kind of tournament that puts a striker's name in headlines for all the right reasons. On July 1st, 2026, in the round of 32 against Bosnia-Herzegovina, USA were cruising to a 2-0 win. And then, in what should have been a forgettable moment in an otherwise brilliant win, Balogun stepped awkwardly on the ankle of Bosnia's Tarik Muharemovic. The referee didn't hesitate. Red card.
Now, under FIFA's own rules, that's about as routine as discipline gets. A straight red like that means an automatic one-match ban. No debate, no controversy, no story. Balogun sits out the next game, USA move on with or without him. That's how it's supposed to go. That's not how it went. 5 days later. 5 days. FIFA confirmed something that simply doesn't happen in international football. Balogun's suspension had been paused, not overturned through the normal channels. Paused under something called Article 27 of FIFA's Disciplinary Code, which gives the organization discretion over how sanctions are applied.
And the reason why sent the entire football world into a spin. ABC confirmed that U.S. President Donald Trump had personally called FIFA President Gianni Infantino to ask for the ban to be reviewed. A sitting head of state on the phone about a red card in a World Cup group match.
I spoke to Gianni, who's highly respected. I asked for a review by FIFA. I'm the one that got them to do it. It was not Biden. Biden was asleep.
Now, here's the thing. This actually wasn't the very first time Article 27 had been used at this tournament. Portugal's Cristiano Ronaldo had a suspension partially waived under the same rule earlier in the competition. So had Argentina's Nicolás Otamendi and Ecuador's Moises Caicedo. So on the surface, you might think, well, this had already happened before. Why was Balogun's case any different? Here's why. In Ronaldo's case, he still served the automatic first match, only the additional matches beyond that were waived. Balogun's case was different in one crucial way. He was excused from serving the very suspension that was supposed to be automatic and immediate. Legal analysts who studied the case afterward pointed to that exact distinction as the center of the entire controversy. Not whether FIFA had the power to use Article 27 at all, but whether using it to erase the automatic, immediate consequence of a red card set a precedent nobody could walk back. Whatever the legal nuance, the practical result was simple. Balogun started against Belgium, like the red card in Bosnia had just evaporated. UEFA didn't stay quiet about it. Their statement was blunt. FIFA's decision, they said, had crossed a red line. They warned it created a precedent where, quote, similar situations will now require an equal treatment to the detriment of the competition. Belgium's Football Federation said they were astonished. Their head coach, Rudy Garcia, argued the whole situation made the tournament feel inconsistent with its own rulebook. And it wasn't just Belgium. On the very same day, in a completely different match, England's Jarell Quansah was sent off for a broadly similar incident against Mexico. That coincidence handed England manager Thomas Tuchel the perfect real-time comparison to make his point. Tuchel didn't hold back.
Where to draw the line is the question that I ask. I have no answer to that. Where does this end now?
Where to draw the line is the question that I ask, he said. Do we appeal if a yellow card is not a yellow card? Where does this start, and where does this end? It's my question. I don't have an answer. Former England international Ian Wright, speaking on British television, put it even more plainly, saying the tournament had already seen things happen that felt, in his words, shameful, regardless of whether Balogun's specific tackle deserved the card in the first place. Germany's federation president Bernd Neuendorf went further still, saying, quote, the impression that there has been active political interference in sport must be dispelled swiftly and conclusively. FIFA didn't back down either. In a follow-up statement, they pushed directly back at UEFA, arguing that reviewing the legal consequences of red cards is, their words, nothing new in the modern game, and that nothing in the rules actually prohibited the disciplinary committee from exercising its Article 27 discretion the way it had. And President Trump himself weighed in publicly too, posting a message thanking FIFA for, his words, doing what was right and reversing a great complete injustice. Belgium tried to formally appeal the decision. Hours later, FIFA rejected it, not really on the merits of the case, but on standing. They ruled Belgium didn't have the right to challenge the decision in the first place. Case closed, as far as football's governing body was concerned, before it had really opened. So how did the actual football end? Almost anticlimactically. The United States lost to Belgium anyway, 4-1, and were eliminated from the very tournament they'd controversially kept Balogun eligible for. You'd think that would be the end of the story. No controversy left to argue about. They lost regardless, right? Wrong, because here's the number that puts this whole thing in perspective. Across the entire history of the World Cup, there have been 189 red cards shown. In all that time, only 2 players have ever gone on to not serve the suspension that followed. One of them was Brazil's Garrincha, all the way back in 1962, under a completely different disciplinary system, with no automatic ban process at all. The other is Folarin Balogun in 2026, under a system that was specifically built to make bans automatic and non-negotiable. That's the real story here. Not just whether Balogun's tackle deserved a red card. Plenty of reasonable people can disagree on that one, honestly. It's that a suspension handed down by football's own disciplinary process turned out to be reversible by a phone call from outside the sport entirely for the first time in the tournament's modern history. And unlike almost every other controversy in football history, the goals disputed for decades, the fouls argued about since before some of you were born, this one is still unfolding. There's no 50 years of hindsight here, no consensus that's had time to form.